Es injusto lo que están haciendo. Guatemala es buena, no es mala.
President Trump gave us one mission: make America safe again. And we will not sit idly by.
An underground network quietly linked the United States to Somalia, disguising years of human and drug trafficking beneath routine commercial flights and so-called humanitarian corridors.
FBI raided a quiet private airport in Minneapolis and uncovered a hidden trafficking and narcotics network no one suspected.
Before sunrise on December 30th, 2025, Minneapolis was jolted by an operation no one expected. At 3:15 a.m., federal teams forced entry into a sealed hangar at Liberty Cross International Airport. Steel doors collapsed. A concussive blast echoed through the structure as containers were breached, exposing a hidden pipeline that had moved over 600 people in silence for years. This wasn't disorder. It was a controlled takedown of a system built to erase lives on paper. If you want to understand how this network stayed hidden and how it was finally exposed, subscribe to the channel and stay with us. For years, Liberty Cross International Airport existed in plain sight. Tucked on the edge of Minneapolis, it handled private departures few people ever noticed. No crowds, no terminals filled with passengers, just a steady rhythm of charter flights logged as humanitarian transfers, aid missions, special clearances. On paper, everything looked clean. Between 2019 and 2025, more than 180 private flights departed from this airfield alone. Each one approved, each one expedited. Cargo sealed before inspection. Manifests marked complete. Names were rarely listed. Instead, there were codes, numbers, transit labels, administrative language that moved faster than questions. No alarms were triggered because nothing appeared illegal. The system worked because it looked respectable. David Thomas Reynolds and Safia Ali Warsam were known locally as operators, donors, facilitators. Their airport hosted community events. Their filings showed compliance. Their routes appeared routine. Yet behind hangar walls and restricted offices, something else was happening. People were not arriving. They were passing through. And once they left, they stopped existing inside every domestic record. Analysts would later count hundreds of missing identities tied to Liberty Cross. Individuals not deported, not relocated, not recorded anywhere else. At the time, no one saw a crime. They saw efficiency. They saw paperwork. They saw trust. And that was the danger. Because the quietest systems are often the hardest to hear until the doors finally come down. The first warning did not come from a raid or a witness. It came from absence. Federal analysts noticed that names tied to Liberty Cross flights did not reappear anywhere else. Not in immigration follow-ups, not in employment systems, not in humanitarian registries. They simply stopped. Over a 4-year span, more than 420 identities passed through Minneapolis and vanished without a single domestic trace. Flight logs revealed a pattern. Routes repeated with mechanical consistency. Minneapolis to Tijuana, short ground holds, then onward departures listed under foreign commercial contracts. Passenger columns were replaced with numeric tags. Status fields read, transit cleared or final transfer. There were no return entries, no settlement records, no sponsoring organizations that could be verified. On paper, everything was complete. In reality, nothing ended. Investigators cross-checked financial ledgers tied to David Thomas Reynolds and Safia Ali Warsam. Payments arrived in fragments, smaller transfers designed to avoid scrutiny, totaling tens of millions of dollars over several years. Logistics costs were inflated. Security services billed for flights that carried no listed cargo. The money moved cleanly, legally, and quietly. Then came the testimony. A former U.S. Army veteran, recovered months earlier after escaping forced labor overseas, described a journey that mirrored the files exactly. The same holding rooms, the same assurances of work and education, the same route out. His account confirmed what the data suggested. This was not relocation. It was processing. By late December, analysts identified a critical shift. New flight activity appeared. Clearances were accelerated. Manifests marked immediate. Timing mattered now. Once those departures left U.S. jurisdiction, recovery would be impossible. As you listen to this, consider the question investigators faced that night. If people disappear without resistance or noise, how long before anyone notices? Because what came next was no longer analysis. It was action. And the window to intervene was closing fast. At 3:15 a.m. on December 30th, 2025, the final clearance window at Liberty Cross International Airport was still open. 2 outbound flights were logged for departure within 90 minutes. Cargo sealed, security waived. Everything was moving on schedule until it wasn't. Federal vehicles cut power to the outer grid first. In less than 22 seconds, perimeter access points were locked. Reinforced doors at Hangar LC-47 were breached under controlled force. The impact reverberating through steel beams and concrete. The sound was sharp, contained, deliberate. Inside, the operation accelerated. Rows of sealed containers filled the hangar floor, stacked with logistical precision. When the first doors were forced open, agents froze. Inside were people, compressed into spaces designed for equipment, not bodies. Some had been there for hours, others for days. Wrist tags carried numeric identifiers. No names, no destinations. Departure stamps marked final transfer with timestamps less than an hour away. Preliminary counts climbed rapidly. Over 270 individuals were confirmed on site, including a significant number of minors. Adjacent staging documents showed additional capacity prepared for up to 90 more within the same cycle. This was not an emergency holding area. It was a launch point. David Thomas Reynolds and Safia Ali Warsam were detained as command teams secured the control offices. Inside, flight boards displayed a rolling schedule, routes repeating with mechanical regularity. Minneapolis to Tijuana, Tijuana to overseas industrial zones. Financial logs showed fragmented payments totaling tens of millions, routed through layered entities designed to appear compliant and charitable. As agents worked, analysts delivered a critical update. External movement logs confirmed active transfers already beyond U.S. jurisdiction. Liberty Cross was only one node, a central one, but not the last. By 4:42 a.m., the airport was declared a sealed federal crime scene. All departures canceled, all data mirrored and locked. No press briefings, no statements. The silence returned, but it was different now. Controlled, heavy. The system that had operated quietly for years had just fractured at its core. And what spilled out was not chaos, but truth. The question was no longer whether this pipeline existed. It was how far it reached, and how many lives were still moving through it at that very moment. With Liberty Cross sealed, the investigation widened in hours, not days. What agents had uncovered in Minneapolis was only the front end of a longer chain. Flight data mirrored across seized servers revealed that the same departure codes used at the airport had already triggered movements elsewhere. The pipeline was still active, just no longer hidden. Analysts traced the outbound sequence to a private airstrip outside Tijuana. It appeared unremarkable on satellite records, registered as an agricultural logistics hub. Yet, movement logs told a different story. In the previous 18 months alone, more than 70 unscheduled cargo arrivals had passed through the site, each aligned within hours of departures from Minneapolis. None of the cargo manifests listed passengers. All of them listed weight. When coordinated units secured the location, the pattern became clear. People were being staged in short cycles, rarely staying longer than 48 hours. Some had arrived with minimal documentation, others had none at all. They were processed quickly, tagged, and prepared for onward transport. The goal was speed. The faster the transfer, the smaller the chance of detection. From there, the route extended across the Pacific. Industrial records in southern China showed facilities operating under export and recycling licenses, yet consuming labor at rates far beyond declared staffing levels. Shift logs reflected 16 to 18-hour work cycles, no payroll entries, no employment contracts. Individuals rotated in. Others disappeared from the logs entirely. Recovered testimony confirmed what documents implied. Promises of education or skilled work were used to maintain compliance. Once inside the system, choices narrowed rapidly. Movement was controlled. Communication was limited. Time blurred into production schedules. By the time federal coordination centers mapped the full route, the scope was undeniable. Minneapolis had not been a destination. It had been a sorting point. A place where people entered a system designed to move them efficiently and quietly out of sight. And as teams raced to intercept remaining transfers, one reality set in across command channels. Every hour mattered. Because beyond the paperwork and logistics, there were still lives mid-journey, counted not as people, but as cargo waiting for clearance. By mid-morning, attention shifted from runways and hangars to the administrative core of Liberty Cross. Behind a decorative wall panel inside the upper offices, agents uncovered a reinforced vault door wired to an independent security circuit. It was isolated from the airport's main systems, designed to remain untouched even during routine inspections. When it was opened, the investigation changed shape. Inside were 9 encrypted hard drives, dozens of sealed financial binders, and metal cases packed with passports, identity fragments, and transit documents. None were stored by nationality or name. They were organized by route, cycle, and clearance status. Files referenced units, volumes, and inventory classes. Human language had been removed entirely. Cross-reference flight binders showed a scale far larger than first estimates. Over 640 individuals were linked directly to the Liberty Cross pipeline, with movement logs stretching back 6 years. Some entries were marked recovered, many were not. A separate column carried a single notation, unreturned. No explanation followed. Financial records traced layered payments through shell aviation firms and offshore accounts. Transfers were deliberately fragmented, often under reporting thresholds, yet combined totals exceeded $90 million across the operational period. Internal memoranda described Minneapolis as the clean corridor, a route with minimal oversight and low inquiry risk. Victims were selected based on isolation, limited family contact, incomplete records, no legal advocates. One section of the vault contained duplicated humanitarian forms, complete with logos, signatures, and recycled dates. These documents had been used to reassure families overseas that their relatives were entering education or training programs. None of the programs existed. Every assurance had been fabricated to maintain silence. As analysts reconstructed the archive, a single conclusion became unavoidable. This was not a loose criminal enterprise. It was infrastructure. It had departments, audits, contingency plans, and succession protocols. It was designed to endure. By the time the vault was cataloged, the numbers no longer felt abstract. They represented years of movement, years of absence, and a system that had converted trust into concealment. The arrests had exposed the gate. The records exposed the cost. When the first full review was completed, the numbers stopped behaving like statistics. Across 3 locations, Minneapolis, Tijuana, and overseas facilities, more than 700 individuals were now tied to the Liberty Cross pipeline. Some were recovered alive. Others remained unresolved. For investigators, the most difficult category was not confirmed loss, but uncertainty. Files marked incomplete, journeys without endpoints, names that appeared once and never again. Medical teams working with survivors reported severe exhaustion, untreated injuries, and prolonged deprivation. Many struggled to recall dates or timelines. Time inside the system had not been measured in days or weeks, but in shifts, transfers, and waiting periods between movements. Several children did not speak at first. They stayed close to the nearest adult, unsure whether the next instruction meant safety or relocation. Families overseas were contacted through translators and humanitarian partners. Many believed their relatives had already reached stable lives abroad, studying, working, sending support home. Instead, they learned that years had passed without records, without messages, without answers. For some, confirmation brought relief. For others, it reopened silence that had never fully closed. Internal assessments later confirmed how the system survived so long. Liberty Cross operated in a regulatory blind spot: private aviation, humanitarian exemptions, international logistics. Oversight was fragmented. Responsibility was assumed to belong elsewhere. No single failure caused the damage. A series of small gaps allowed it to grow. Policy reviews followed. Tighter screening, cross-agency verification, shared databases designed to catch identity gaps before they widened. But no reform could restore what had already been taken. Investigators acknowledged that openly. The case ended not with celebration but with restraint. No victory announcements, no public triumph. Just quiet coordination, long interviews, and the slow work of rebuilding lives interrupted by years of controlled movement. Liberty Cross was never only a crime scene. It was a lesson, one that showed how easily systems built on trust can be repurposed for harm, and how silence, when left unchallenged, can carry people farther than force ever could. The Liberty Cross case did not end with arrests or sealed files. It ended with a question that still lingers. How many systems like this exist only because no one thinks to look too closely? For years, silence, paperwork, and trust allowed people to disappear without alarms. This investigation proved that vigilance, not noise, is what stops that kind of harm. If this story made you pause, share your thoughts below. Do you think oversight failed, or was it trust that went too far? Subscribe to the channel, stay informed, and keep these stories from fading back into silence.